everyone, welcome back to Biophilia, your all-time study mate. Today we are going to continue with the chapter of class 12, that is ecosystem, with its part 2 of functions of ecosystem. If you like this video and get some help, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our amazing channel Biophilia. So here we understand about the function of ecosystem. इसके पहले के वीडियो में we have seen about the structure and the composition of ecosystem. Now we see that how the ecosystem is going to function in the nature. So ecosystem is going to have a natural tendency to persist, यानी वो अपने आप को ऐसे संभाल लेगा खुद से कि वो अपने functions खुद ही करके खुद ही को survive करने के लिए it is all up to itself. So here we see that what are the functional aspects of ecosystem that makes its natural tendency so that it can survive. So first of all, it is going to undergo the term that is productivity, यानी वो अपना food है या energy source है वो खुद बनाएगा. There will be decomposition occurring, there will be energy flow, so that each and every organism is going to get the energy in some way or the other, and then finally the nutrient cycling will be done so that the new species or new organisms that grew up in the ecosystem are getting to have their productivity. So let's understand these key functionals in one by one in detail. The first we see is about productivity. So productivity को आप कैसे define करोगे? It is going to be the rate of biomass production. So how is this going to be calculated? So there can be some areas which are going to be high in productivity. So ऐसे कौन से हो सकते हैं? There can be regions in the deep marine system wherein the coral reefs come under high productivity. वहाँ पे tropical rain forest है जहाँ पे इतना ज़्यादा dense forest है वो, you are going to see high productivity की even from the bottom of the floor of the ground of the forest, वहाँ से लेकर emergent trees तक हर layer पे you are going to find some or the other way of productivity. And इतना ज़्यादा vegetation होने की वजह से even the species are going to be rich. So we have seen that in the previous video itself. So here these are the natural high productivity ecosystems, whereas in a natural, that is opposite to natural, that is human made, we are going to have sugarcane field. Sugarcane comes under इतना ज़्यादा उसको extensively उगाया जाता है, but amount of carbon source, or that is sugar content, everything that is going to be much more than the other crops that can be grown. So sugarcane field can also be an example of high productive ecosystems. Then low productive ecosystems में आ सकता है deserts जहाँ पे vegetation कम है, temperature ज़्यादा है, so plants cannot grow due to less water content. So nutrients भी कम होंगे because vegetation is low, and even animal population cannot be very high-fi so that they can live onto that area. Even in deep sea it is not possible, because in deep sea there are two major limiting factors. कौन से limiting factors है? First of all, there is going to be the limiting factor that is light. So once there is a limiting factor of light, how does it depend? The light is going to decrease as the depth of the sea or ocean or the water body is increasing. So this, because of this reason कि light source कम हो जाता है, because of that reason it becomes a limiting factor, and this limiting factor is going to cause the low productivity in the deep sea. Second important is going to be the nutrients. So nutrients may the deep sea organisms, maybe they might be the plants or they might be the animals living in deep sea, these are not going to have rich source of nitrogen. So there is going to be limit on nitrogen. So because of limitations of nitrogen in deep sea, even plants cannot live or survive properly, because nitrogen is going to be one of the major components of the plants. So जैसे plant life कम है, so depending on the plant, the animal life will also be slow, and that makes it low productive ecosystem. Now let us understand about the primary productivity. So first of all, we had seen what is productivity is the rate of biomass production. So primary है because here we are going to see the rate of biomass or the organic production. अब ये कहाँ से आ रहा है? It is going to be produced by the producers, and since it is producers, as we had seen in the previous video, producers are called as the key role players. So these key roles, that is the reason, since it is made by the producers, it will be the primary productivity. और ये production कहाँ से होगा? It will be because of the process called as photosynthesis, and once the rate is calculated as per the unit area over a time period, that gives you the total primary productivity. So the rate of sunlight that is captured by the producers of the synthesis, that is rich energy compounds, through the process of photosynthesis is going to be also called as primary productivity. So two definitions can work onto this term. Now how is it going to be expressed? उसका कुछ यूनिट होता है, जैसे वेट को आप केजी में, लेंथ को मीटर्स में, सेंटीमीटर्स में. Similarly primary productivity can be expressed in terms of the weight, that will be in the terms of gram meter square inverse per year. So this is the reason, that is the rate of biomass. Biomass को आप कैसे calculate करोगे? That will be the case of grams, because if you are converting it in weight, that is in per unit area, so area का unit हो जाएगा meter square, and that will be per, so it is inverse, so that becomes the formula as gram meter square per unit, that is time year, or that can be expressed in a kilocalorie once you are expressing it in terms of energy. So kilocalorie meter square, that is the area, and the year will be your unit or time period. So gram अगर है तो it will be expressed in the weight terms, and if it is kilocalorie it will be in the terms of energy. So both the ways you can express the primary productivity, and that will help you to actually compare the productivity of the different ecosystems. So जैसे हमने पहले compare किया था high productive zones and the low productive, so that is based on this primary productivity. The next thing we see is going to be the types of primary productivity, that is gathered as the gross primary productivity, that is GPP, or the net primary productivity, that is NPP. So gross primary productivity is going to be the rate of production of organic matter that is produced by the producers, because it is going to be a type of primary productivity. So producers will not change, but what will be the change? The change is going to be that it is the total. Gross means what? Gross means it is total. Whatever is produced is going to be calculated under the gross primary productivity. But even plants are going to be living organisms. उनको भी energy की ज़रूरत है. Even they need to have some amount of a product that they have synthesized. So once the amount of some GPP, that is gross primary productivity, the plants will use in the form of respiration. So plants को जीने के लिए भी कुछ चाहिए, so वो जो भी बनाएंगे, for example this much amount they have made, so this entire green area is going to be the GPP. Now from the GPP, these are going to use some amount for their utilization, for their respiration. This respiration, the red one, will be the respiratory losses. And once the respiratory losses have been reduced, the rest of the part that is left with us or the consumers is going to be called as net primary productivity. So net primary productivity, how can you explain it? It can be explained as the rate of organic matter built up or stored, because these is going to be the case that the herbivores or the in a way it is going to be supplied to some or the other organism. So जो buildup है, जो stored amount है, जैसे for example जो carrot है, carrot में जो store हुआ है, that is going to be the net primary productivity, but some amount has been already used by the plant so that its life processes can be going through. So removing that, the everything will be stored into the NPP and can be utilized by other people. So that is going to be the NPP. So how do you get the equation? It is going to come as NPP will be GPP minus the respiratory losses. So with the pie chart also I explained you, so that some part will be utilized by the producers and the rest of the GPP will be provided as a build-up or a stored energy. So that makes us to understand about the primary productivity. The factors affecting primary productivity are going to be the photosynthetic capacity of producers. That means how much amount of the producers can be utilizing the solar radiation. Solar radiation हर पौधे के लिए same आता है. It is not like, for example, for the case of say शुगर केन के ऊपर भी उतना ही सनलाइट आ रहा है जितना किसी और प्लांट के ऊपर आने वाला है. So that is not going to be changed. But why sugarcane is going to have much more productivity? Because it has the utilization capacity more than the other plants. So because of that, the primary productivity is going to differ. The second thing that can be is the solar radiations available. हो सकता है कि in tropical areas there is going to be much more radiations coming because of it is nearer to the equator. Whereas if you go to the northern poles or the southern poles, वहाँ पे radiation, that is solar energy, कम होगी. Yeah, even if you go to the deep seas, the light conditions will be lesser. So that is also going to affect the primary productivity. Next will be the temperature. So temperature, colder areas may you see the polar ice caps do not have much more plants, so low primary productivity. Whereas in hot and humid areas temperature is more, sunlight is more, so there will be forests like Amazon rainforest. So likewise the primary productivity changes according to the soil moisture, according to the availability of nutrients, and so on. You can understand with the example of the rainforest and the desert. Now whatever is going to be the annual NPP, this annual NPP is going to be for the whole biosphere. It is calculated for the whole biosphere. Then it comes to be about 170 billion tons of organic matter. So whatever is the amount of producers fixing the solar radiation to form some organic matter, वो कितना हो जाता है? It becomes about 170 billion tons. But if you compare it by separating the producers on land, that is terrestrial ecosystem, and if you separate it in the aquatic ones, now as you know that water is more, so you might think जैसे earth पे water ज़्यादा है, so because water bodies are more, the producers in water bodies will be more, and because of that the productivity of oceans will be more. But this is not correct. Once it was identified that even despite of having 70% of surface of oceans or water bodies, the oceans are going to contribute only 55 billion tons, whereas the terrestrial ecosystem, that means to about 30% of the surface of the earth, still it is going to have about 115 billion tons. So if you compare it, जिसका area ज़्यादा है earth पे, but still there is going to be low productivity, because we have discussed in the previous slide as well कि deep sea में limitations है. There is limitation of nutrients, that is nitrogen sources कम हो जाते हैं, light availability कम हो जाती है, and there are many areas of oceans which are not populated. वहाँ पे there is no population, ना plants है ना animals है, only there is deep water. So because of that, even if it is covering more area, the productive will be low. So this is one important thing to remember, and that might come into your MCQs as well. The next thing that we see is the secondary productivity. So primary productivity tha the rate of formation of organic matter by the producers. Now if it is coming from the consumers, then it will be called as a secondary productivity. सो अभी जैसे प्लांट्स है, प्लांट्स ने क्या किया, प्लांट्स ने अपने आप को पहले जीपीपी बनाया, जीपीपी में से अपने रेस्पिरेटरी लॉसेस को लॉस किया, and now they had given us what, they had given us npp. Now this npp is going to be available for whom, it will be available, say for example it is available for a rabbit. Now this rabbit is going to use what, it is going to use the npp. Now this npp once is accumulated in the rabbit, now the rabbit is also going to use some amount of energy taken from the producers, और वो अपने metabolic सारे processes complete करेगा, and then some amount of energy will be removed in form of pieces. So after the body purposes is done, वेस्ट मैटर को बाहर फेंक दिया जाएगा, इवन देर माइट बी सम एनर्जी यूज्ड इन रेस्पिरेशन. So after all the things, once you calculate in total, whatever the food was eaten, whatever energy was wasted in feces, whatever energy was given out in respiration, rest of the energy which is left will be stored in the form of meat and flesh. So जो blood है, flesh है rabbit के अंदर का, that is going to become the new biomass that is coming under the secondary productivity. So rabbit के बाद जब कोई rabbit को खाएगा, say for example man is going to eat the rabbit, what is it going to get, it will be considered as a secondary productivity, whereas the plants is going to be considered under the primary productivity. So this needs to be understand कि अगर producers produce कर रहे हैं organic matter, it will be primary, whereas consumers will be coming under secondary productivity. Now we understand the second function of ecosystem, that is decomposition. So what is it? The decomposition is nothing but breaking of the complex organic matter. This complex organic matter once is broken by help of some organisms, it will be converted into inorganic raw materials, and this inorganic raw materials can be used by the producers again to form new productivity. So what is the major site of decomposition? Decomposition ज़्यादातर upper area of soil पे होगा, because there is going to be a lot of microorganisms present. So these can be going through the decomposition process. If you consider it for the water bodies में there is going to be sand or soil like conditions in the deep ocean. सो बेस पे क्या होगा, बेस पे होगा आपका डिकम्पोजिशन का साइट, और ऊपर बाकी सब जगह पे क्या होगा, वाटर होगा. सो इन एक्वेटिक कंडीशंस यू आर गोइंग टू हैव डिकम्पोजिशन गोइंग ऑन एट द बॉटम ऑफ द water bodies, whereas if you consider for the case of terrestrial ecosystem, terrestrial पे top surfaces पे होगा, because as you go down you are going to find what, you are going to find big rocks. So वहाँ पे decomposition possible नहीं होगा. So this needs to be understand over here that terrestrial में ऊपर होगा, and the water ecosystem will have it on the bottom of the water bodies. Now what is the source of decomposition process? अब decomposition किस पे होगा? It will be occurring onto the dead remains, जो भी मर चुके हैं. It might be leaves, it might be bark or flowers, that is the plant parts, or it can even be dead remains of animals. So animals हो या it can be plants, both are going to undergo the decomposition, and that will become the detritus. What it will become? It will become the detritus, and that is nothing but the raw material for decomposition. So here in the photographs also you can understand that how the dead body of a pig is going to undergo decomposition, and finally once it is done, all the nutrients that were stored in the dead body of the pig will be returned back to the soil, and the soil will get nutrition, so that अगर by chance वहाँ पे कोई seeds है या वहाँ पे कोई पौधा है आसपास, उसको वो nutrition मिलके the life can continue. So जहाँ से आप आए हो वहीं पे आप जाओगे. That is going to be because of the process of decomposition. Now decomposition process is going to be undergoing some processes. So the first process that comes is called as fragmentation of detritus. अब जो भी detritus है यानी dead remains of plants or it might be of animals or it might be feces, whatever it is, it needs to be broken down. So ये बहुत बड़ा बड़ा है. For example, अभी if you consider a human body, a human body is left onto the ground for many days, what will happen? It will undergo decomposition and disappear one day, and only the bones will be left out. So आपने बहुत सारे crime scenes में भी देखा होगा, सिर्फ skeleton रह गया और बाकी का सारा flesh उड़ गया. So where did it go? It was because of decomposition. So अभी इतने बड़े human body को पूरा का पूरा कैसे ख़त्म कर दिया? So it is going to be because the whole human body or the any detritus is going to undergo fragmentation. That means it will be eaten up. It will be fed on by the detrivores. Detritivores are nothing but earthworms or termites. So जो बोलते हैं ना कीड़े लग गए after the dead body has been left. So that is going to start the decomposition process. So the detritivores are going to come onto that source and they will be eating it, and once they eat that dead remains, they will be entering into the gut of these detritivores, and once they enter into the digestive tract, they will be broken down into fine particles, and once they poop out, what will be coming? They will be acted upon the enzymes, and that will help to break down into smaller pieces and release out all the nutrients. So that is the work of the detritivores. So जैसे वर्मी कंपोस्टिंग होता है, that is वर्मी कंपोस्टिंग में क्या करते हैं? There are many rotten leaves. So वर्मी कंपोस्टिंग में सारे कंपोस्ट का जो सामान होता है, जैसे there can be about leaves, there can be some twigs fallen over here and there, all that will be gathered onto a container. वहाँ पे earthworms को छोड़ दिया जाएगा. So once the earthworms are left out onto that detritivore, the wormy compost is going to be formed, and this wormy compost is going to be rich in nutrients, and it is a natural source, so you don't need to have fertilizers or anything. So that is a natural process that will be carried out by the detritivores. The second is going to be the leaching. So जैसे ही सारे nutrients detritivores की वजह से soil में आ चुके हैं, and sometimes what will happen after the decomposition process, the rainfall might happen because it is not always कि वहाँ पे सूखा ही हो. So rainfall हो जाएगा, what will happen? Whatever is going to be the water soluble substances, some part of it will be going percolating into the deep soil layers, and there they can also get precipitated. सबसे पहले percolate होगा, deep soil में पहुंच जाएगा, और वहाँ पे precipitate होने की वजह से it will become unavailable salts. So thousands and lakhs of years before, whatever had undergone decomposition, so हो सकता है कि जो the coal that we are using today, or whatever the nutrients we are digging and collecting through mines, all that had might be going under leaching, percolate होके वहाँ पे precipitate हो गया, and now we are using it. So that way the decomposition is going to help in some or the other way. And the last process of the decomposition will be catabolism, wherein the saprotrophic bacteria or fungi are going to secrete digestive enzymes, and over the fragmented detritus. सो जो लीव्स होंगे वो लीव्स को ऐसे बीच में से थोड़ा थोड़ा खुदर खुदर के खा लिया होगा. हो सकता है कि बड़े बड़े पार्ट्स नहीं खा पाए होंगे these earthworms and termites. So there the bacteria and fungi are also going to come, and these will be also contributing to the breakdown of that detritus, and they will change into the simpler inorganic substances. So in that way the entire process of decomposition will be completed. The next we see is the humification and the mineralization. So this is going to be the fourth process of decomposition. यानी एक बार पूरा का पूरा decomposition complete हो चुका है, that might be because of detritus or it might be because of the saprotrophic bacteria and fungi. It will be coming under the process of humus formation. Whatever the humus will be produced, it is going to be dark in color, because this, if you might have seen about humus, it is dark in color, it is amorphous, it is going to be more or less decomposed organic matter. If it is rich in cellulose, lignin or tannins or resins or whatever, so whatever the leaf products hai, whatever cell walls hai, wo decompose okay, the humus will be rich in it. It is also going to be very resistant to microbial action. It is slightly acidic, colloidal and functions to be the reservoir of nutrients, because as you know that the manures जो होते हैं, manure में क्या डालते हैं, manure is nothing but the humus. So instead of using fertilizers, that is NPK or any other fertilizer, that is going to pass through one trophic level to the other. But that should not happen. So if you are using organic substances like humus or manure, what will happen? This is going to be done by the organisms. सारे detritivores काम कर रहे हैं, and it is completely a natural process, so that it is not going to harm any of the trophic levels. So it might take time, but it is more effective. So after the completion of humus formation, that is the decomposition of it is going to occur at a very slow rate, and because it occurs at a very slow rate, people don't prefer to wait for this long and they use fertilizers. और वहीं पे गलती करते हैं कि if you use fertilizers you might have good crop this year, 5 साल तक अच्छा क्रॉप आएगा, बट वंस देर इज गोइंग टू बी सैचुरेशन ऑफ द सॉइल, वहाँ के न्यूट्रिएंट्स का पूरा ख़त्म हो जाएगा. नाउ यू हैव टू डिपेंड ऑन द न्यू सॉइल or new area or a fertile land. So fertility will also be going out, and now here you need to have manure added to it so that new crops can be grown the next year. So all that needs to be avoided, and the best way is to have natural decomposition. The next is going to be the process that is mineralization. So after the humus is formed, what will be done? There will be release of inorganic substances, and once it is released, it might be coming in the form of simple soluble organic substances, and that might be coming from the saprotrophic microbes. So old plants जब मर जाएंगे, वो सारा dead material हो जाएगा, soil organisms will feed onto it, the process of decomposition will complete with formation of humus, and the mineralization will take place so that it will be led free into the soil, and that can be taken up by the new plants surrounding it. So that makes us to understand the natural process, how the nature is going to अंडरगो द प्रोसेस कि हर किसी को न्यूट्रिएंट सप्लाई हो जाए. सो मरने के बाद क्या होता है? मरने के बाद डिकम्पोजिशन होता है. सो दैट कैन बी ऑल्सो एक्सप्लेन्ड ओवर हियर. The next we see the factors affecting decomposition. Factors में first of all will come, that is the chemical nature of detritus. क्या plants के पत्ते डाल रहे हो, या twigs डाल रहे हो, पेपर डाल रहे हो, या किसी की animal body है, all that is going to be affecting the rate of decomposition. So if it is detritus having lignin or chitins or cellulose, so the decomposition process is going to be slow because these compounds are hard to decompose. If it is going to be some sort of nitrogenous compounds, for example it is rich in proteins, nucleic acids or water soluble carbohydrates, there will be rapid decomposition. So you can try it. If you are leaving a piece of bread that is rich in carbohydrates. So carbohydrates rich bread को अगर आपने ऐसे ही छोड़ दिया खुले ज़मीन पे, that might undergo decomposition at a faster rate than as compared to a twig or a piece of leaf. So that is going to be the difference, that what sort of chemicals it is made up of, and that will be affecting on the rate of decomposition. Second is going to be the temperature. वही सेम ब्रेड को आप ट्रॉपिकल एरियाज में रखो वेर इन द टेम्परेचर विल बी मोर देन 25 डिग्रीज, एंड वंस यू गो टू स्नोई एरियाज जहाँ पे टेम्परेचर बहुत ज़्यादा ड्रॉप करता है, there and the place of more than 25 degrees Celsius, you will see that there is a huge difference on the decomposition. तो जहाँ पे टेम्परेचर ज़्यादा होगा वहाँ पे even decomposition is going to be faster. So areas wherein which have good moisture and aeration, such as in the hot and humid areas, there is going to be a lot more rate of decomposition, and it might also happening in 1 to 2 months decomposition हो सकता है, whereas in other areas it might even take 3 to 4 months to complete complete the decomposition process. So if the temperature is going below 10 degrees Celsius, then what will happen? Below 10 degrees Celsius the rate is going to be very slow, and this rate that becomes very slow, what will happen? वहाँ पे एरिएशन आप कितना भी दो, उसको मॉइस्चर कितना भी दो, still it is not going to occur, because of that the area of tropics will be having more productivity because decomposition हो रहा है, nutrient supply हो रहा है. But in areas of polar icy areas decomposition becomes slow because of temperature is reduced, and because of that also there is going to be lesser vegetation. So that can also be related over here to tropical regions में temperature ज़्यादा है, decomposition faster है, वहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा vegetation है, such as in Amazon rainforest, whereas in icy cold areas you have the opposite of it, and that makes the area to look like that. The next we see is moisture. So moisture is going to be the optimum moisture will help in quicker decomposition. So बहुत लोग ऐसे होते हैं, सोचते हैं कि मॉइस्चर ज़्यादा होगा या मॉइस्चर आपने बहुत सारा दे दिया तो डिकम्पोजिशन ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, and it will give you a faster compost. What will happen? Few people might also add a lot of water, and that will be causing a lot of problems. So even if the moisture is too much, that is not it is going to impact onto the decomposition. So excessive moisture is not good. Even if you are providing very less moisture, if it is completely dry, that is also not going to help in the decomposition. Optimum moisture is very important, and that is going to be constituting the two important factors. सबसे पहला important factor कौन सा आएगा? The most important factor will be the temperature, and the second most important factor is going to be your moisture. So writing it as MIF, that is most important factor. So this most important factors में कौन दो आते हैं? They will be the temperature and moisture that affect the decomposition the most. The next comes, that is aeration. Aeration will be required because decomposition जो कर रहा है, that is the kind of earthworms or termites or even some bacteria and fungi, these are going to need the circulation of air. Oxygen का intake होना चाहिए, and if there is reduced aeration, the decomposition process will be slowed down because organisms will not grow and they will not undergo the eating of the detritus. So aeration should also be provided so that good amount of decomposition can be carried out. The next is the nutrient immobilization. This is a phenomenon wherein the nutrients which have been calculated in the living microbes is not going to be available for other organisms. For example, एक बार किसी microbe की death हो जाती है, the immobilized nutrients will be again available for the solubilization. For example, whatever the nutrients the microbes are using for their metabolism, वो जब तक मरते नहीं है वो न्यूट्रिएंट्स उसी के अंदर फंसे हुए रहेंगे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, you might have seen that many funguses, many algae are used in formation of protein powders. So algae used in protein powder formation, what they need to do, प्रोटीन पाउडर जब उन्हें ऑब्टेन करना होता है, दिस एल्गी वंस इट इज ग्रोइंग, व्हेन इट इज लिविंग, प्रोटीन पाउडर कैन नॉट बी फॉर्म. सो जब तक वो लिविंग है, लिविंग टिश्यू में क्या होगा, लिविंग टिश्यू में प्रोटीन होगा इन द बॉडी. एंड वंस इट इज डेड, after its death, what will happen, the protein is going to be extracted. So protein extract आप कब कर पाए, once it is dead. Once it is dead, the microorganisms can give out their nutrients and that can be solubilized. So ये तो factories में होता है, but in nature, in the soil, all these microbes, once they die, they are going to be releasing out their fixed trapped nutrients for the solubilization process. So what will happen, ये in a way एक ऐसा रिजर्वॉयर है कि एक साथ सारा का सारा न्यूट्रिशन यूज अप ना हो जाए. सो जब तक माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स लिविंग है वहाँ पे वो लॉकर के जैसा काम कर रहे हैं. व्हाट आर दे वर्किंग एज, दे आर वर्किंग एज बैंक लॉकर्स. वो अपने अंदर सारा न्यूट्रिशन क्या कर रहे हैं, दे आर यूजिंग इट एज reservoirs, and because of that it is going to protect the nutrients from being wasted out. यानी अगर बारिश ज़्यादा हो गई, सॉइल पूरा का पूरा लैंडस्लाइड होके बह गया, what will happen, all the nutrients will get lost from the ecosystem, and that should not occur, and that will be protected by the microbes, that is nutrient immobilization. The next is the function of ecosystem, that is energy flow. So it is going to be a sequential process, as the name tells you about it, is a flow. So जैसे पानी बहता है, that is the way the energy is going to flow. And once it is a sequential process, it will start from the producers, and it will end up to the consumers or the top carnivores, you can say as it. So what is going to be the major first source of energy? The sun is going to be one and only the source for the entire ecosystem, and that is not true for the two cases, that is the deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem. It is not, the sun is not going to be accepted as a source of energy because itna deep sea है, वहाँ पे light cannot reach. And there what will be the energy source, it is going to be the hydrothermal energy. यानी जो अर्थ के सेंटर का जो कोर है, वो कोर की जो हीट है, वो कोर की हीट उसे प्रोवाइड करेगी the temperature or the energy that their organisms need. So earth के core का energy will be supplied to the deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem, and rest of the areas will be provided energy by the sun. So energy is not permanent, it has to be passed to one organism to another, or from higher trophic level to the lower trophic level, and afterwards it can also be provided to the decomposers when the animal is going to die. And a very important thing to remember, energy flow is always unidirectional. As I told you the example of river, river mountains में से आती है, mountains में से आप river जब बनाते हो, what do you see, river starts flowing and it comes and flows and meets into the sea or ocean. Have you ever seen that the river starting from the mountain and it is going back up into the mountain? No, it is never going to happen. It once starts to flow downwards, वो नीचे ही बहती चली जाएगी. Similarly, whatever is the main source of the energy in the our ecosystem, यानी sun है, sun से हमेशा energy नीचे जाएगी, that is from the sun it will go to the producers, from producers to herbivores, then carnivores, and if carnivores dies or herbivore die, they are going to be provided to the decomposers. But it will never happen that once the plant is going to take up all the energy, it will be supplying back to the sun. It will never happen. So that gives us example of that energy flow is always going to be unidirectional. Now, how is it going to be passed on from one tropic level to another? So, sun की जो energy होगी, that you consider it as the incident solar radiation. This incident solar radiation is going to be the 100% of the energy that is coming from the sun. But plants are going to only absorb some of the energy because वहाँ पे जो बहुत सारी rays आ रही हैं, but all the rays of the wavelength cannot be absorbed by the photosynthetic pigments. There are some amount of radiations that can be absorbed, whereas rest of it once they come from the atmosphere वो absorb हो जाती है. So 100% में से about more than 50% it will be scattered, or it might be reflected by the clouds, or it might be absorbed by the water vapors. So जो बाकी बची हुई energy होगी, that is going to be called as photosynthetically active radiations, that is called as PAR. Now this PAR is going to be undergoing energy loss, and only about 1 to 5% is going to be the energy that can be captured in photosynthesis. So photosynthesis में finally कितनी energy बचेगी? It will be almost 1 to 5% of the incident solar radiations, and because of that, that is 1 to 5% of what? 1 to 5% of the incident solar radiations, or you can also call it as 2 to 10% of the PAR, that is photosynthetically active radiations. Anyway, you can consider it, and rest of it will be taken up by the plants or the producers as a respiratory loss, and finally whatever is left out for the consumers will be the NPP, that is about 0.8 to 4%. So in a way you can understand जो 100% solar radiations sun provide कर रहा था, उसमें से herbivores को कितना मिलेगा? Only about 0.8 to 4%. So this is going to be the kind of the starting point for the energy sourcing. So what will happen? The detritivores are going to feed in a way. So plants खाएंगे, plants herbivores को देंगे, herbivores से carnivores तक, और जब ये सब मर जाएंगे, the decomposers are going to eat all that amount and will be also exhibiting their energy sourcing. Now let us see that how the energy flow is going to follow physics. अब energy flow और physics का क्या लेना देना है? Even in biology you are going to have physics, and how does it come? It comes in the source of laws of thermodynamics. So laws of thermodynamics, as you know, these are going to be two laws of thermodynamics, and you know the first law of thermodynamics, that is energy can neither be created nor can be destroyed, but it can be transformed from one source to the another state. So same thing is going to be applied into the energies flowing as well. जो भी sunlight energy है, sunlight की energy क्या है? Sunlight की energy है the light energy. Now this light energy, once it is fixed by the photosynthetic pigments, it will be converted into the chemical energy. So sunlight को plants ने क्या किया? सिर्फ energy का type बदला है, only it is changed into form of food and heat. Chemical energy किस form में है? It is in the form of food and heat. So वहाँ पे क्या हुआ है? Energy ना add हुई है ना subtract हुई है, only the form of it has been changed. So even the biology, that is of nature, is also following the laws of physics. Second law of thermodynamics, what it is going to, that is the no transfer of energy occurs until and unless it is going to be accompanied by degradation or loss of major part of the energy. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? Whatever has been utilized by the plants अपने आप के लिए भी कुछ respiratory losses करेंगे. So only the energy will be going through the second tropic level once some part of energy, that is food energy, is released as heat. So for example, here I have tried to draw a diagram for you to understand. That is the sun is going to be the highly concentrated area. Now from the concentrated area it will be dispersing to the low concentrated. Low concentrated कौन है? The plants. So once it comes to the producers, the 10% of it will be captured by the plants, 9% of it will be given back as a form of heat, and 1% will be given to the next trophic level. Say for example the herbivores. So herbivores में भी जो 1% आया है उसमें से 0.9% हीट में चला जाएगा. So majority of the food energy will be dissipated as heat, and rest of it will be carried forwarded to the next trophic level. So this what we saw, the 10% coming from the solar radiation and 1% going. So 10% आया है, उसमें से 1% आगे जाएगा, and 9% will be out as heat. So this is also going to be understanding of the law of thermodynamics that occurs in the nature. Now let us understand about the food chain. So the sequence of living organisms in which they are going to transfer their food energy from the producers then to the series of organisms which will be repeatedly eating each other. All that thing कि आपने पहले producers लिए, producers से down the line who will come, there will be consumers. In the consumers, say they are coming herbivores, from herbivores to carnivores, and from carnivores to the top carnivore. This is going to be the food chain, and each and every step wherever there is energy transformation going to occur, each one will be called as a trophic level. So producers को दे दिया trophic level 1, herbivores को 2, carnivores को 3, and top carnivores को 4. So based on that you can call it that they are categorized into the trophic levels, and based on it whatever the organisms are included, there are going to be three types of food chain. First is called as grazing food chain or GFC, or the predator food chain. Second is detritus food chain DFC, and parasite food chain, that is PFC, or the auxiliary food chain. The first type will be the grazing food chain or GFC. This is going to be consisting of the producers, that is majority plants, consumers and decomposers. So source of energy कहाँ से आएगा? It is going to be the sun, because major of this type of food chain will be under the aquatic ecosystem. Very important to remember. GFC, that is grazing food chain जो होगा, it is going to be the major conduct of flow in the aquatic ecosystems, and the size of organisms will increase as the trophic level increases. So here also you can understand, एक छोटा सा flower है, उसको खा लिया कैटरपिलर ने, कैटरपिलर का साइज बड़ा हो गया, राइट. कैटरपिलर को फ्रॉग ने खाया, फ्रॉग और बड़ा हो गया, right. Now once the frog is much more bigger, what will happen? The snake becomes much more bigger in size, and after the snake eaten by the owl, all the उससे भी बड़ा हो गया. So each and every trophic level the size of the organism is going to increase. That is the characteristics of the grazing food chain. The detritus food chain or the DFC, it is going to start with the detritus, that is the dead organic matter. वहाँ पे कोई plant source नहीं होगा, like it is not coming from the sun, but the dead leaves, that is the detritus, will be starting this food chain. And once this dead leaves or the detritus is going to be acting, that is the decomposers will come, that is majorly funguses and bacteria, they will come, and these are going to decompose, and after decomposing the entire terrestrial ecosystem majorly is going to flow their energy through the process of DFC. So aquatic conditions may you are going to have the food chain, that is grazing food chain. So just to remember, let us write it down again. अगर conditions aquatic है, then the grazing food chain will be much more functional, whereas in the case of terrestrial ecosystem, what will be the type of food chain? It will be DFC. The next type is called as parasitic food chain or auxiliary food chain, wherein as the name parasite, it is going to be starting, you know, from a large organism. जैसे for example you consider a tree. एक ट्री के ऊपर बहुत सारे हर्बीवोर्स बर्ड्स रह रहे हैं, एक ट्री के ऊपर बहुत सारे कोयल है या फिर कौवे हैं, बहुत सारे अलग अलग बर्ड्स हैं, और ये बर्ड्स के ऊपर अगर जुए लग गए या कोई कीड़े मकोड़े आके उनके स्किन के ऊपर बैठ रहे, so you can imagine A big one big tree के ऊपर these are some of the birds sitting, and on these birds what will happen? The tree is one. हर्बीवोर बर्ड्स समझो चार हो गए, और ये चार हर्बीवोर बर्ड्स के ऊपर कितना एरिया हो जाएगा? देयर कैन बी thousands of lices and bugs. What will happen? The tree is, that is the number is going to increase, but the size is going to decrease. So as we saw in the grazing food chain, जहाँ पे organism का size बड़ा हो जाता है, यहाँ पे क्या होगा? organism का size छोटा हो जाएगा, and the number of them is going to increase. So these are some of the characteristics that you need to remember for the different kinds of food chain. The next we see is food web. So food chain एक होती है, जैसे एक सिंगल लाइन में जाएगी तो इट इज़ गोइंग टू बी अ फूड चेन. सो चेन कैसी होती है? वो एक लाइन में जाएगी, बट चेन अगर उलझ जाए, दो चार चेन आपने साथ में डाल दिए और वो उलझ गई, और उलझ जाने पे क्या होगा? वो बन जाएगा जाला, और ये जाला नथिंग बट इट इज़ अ फूड वेब. So once these are many food chain coming together, that will be the food web. So that was a simple way to make you understand about the food web. So whenever organisms are going to alternate their sources of food, so जैसे humans को आदत होती है कि भाई आज हमें ये नहीं खाना है, कुछ और मंगाते हैं. So instead of sticking on to a single source of food, जैसे हो सकता है कि humans might have only eaten wheat, but wheat रोज रोज खाते हो क्या? नहीं, you are going to depend on some other sources. You might sometime have plant based food, some people might have animal based food. So it depends, and once the organism starts to alternate its sources, it can be linked to many more in one single food chain. और जब वो चीज़ की एक ही चीज़ हमेशा नहीं खाओगे, एक टाइम प्लांट खाओगे तो आप हर्बीवोर गिने जाओगे, एक बार आप किसी प्लांट की जगह पे एनिमल को खा रहे हो, you come under carnivore. So because of that complications, whenever there is going to be a network of interconnected food chains at different trophic levels, the entire biotic community will be coming under the food web. So food web में what will be the advantage of it? Since it is very उलझी हुई चीज़ है, हो सकता है लोगों को ये पसंद ना आए, but the ecosystem or the environment is going to love it because it is going to provide stability to the ecosystem. आप एक ही चीज़ पर dependent नहीं रहोगे. For example, today if you don't get some plant source, you might eat some non-vegetarian food. If you don't get a hotel wherein you have good non-veg food, you might order vegetarian food. So you have some alternate source of food, and because of that you are not going to die. So हो सकता है कि समझो एक टाइम पे ऐसा आ गया कि आप नॉनवेज खाना बैन हो गया है in the entire country, you are not going to get it. Then what will happen? People are not going to die of it because they have another alternate food for it, and that gives the stability to the ecosystem. For example, snakes है, snakes कभी कभी चूहों को खा सकते हैं, then they become, the mice becomes herbivores. Now if snakes are eating some frogs, then these frogs are going to be carnivore. So because of the source of what they are eating, the position of the snake in the food chain is going to change. जैसे jackal है, jackal हो सकता है that if it is eating on the carnivores, or it can also be scavengers, so directly जाके hunt करेगा या फिर जो hunt हो चुका है उसी को खा लेगा. So it depends. Even the sparrow sometimes can eat grains, sometimes it can pick up some insects and worms. So insects and worm खाएगी तब it will be considered as a secondary consumer, whereas if it is coming under the eating of seeds and fruits, तो वहाँ पे वो primary consumer हो जाएगी. So because of all the changes that occurs in the food sources, these will be coming under the food web, because as I told you in a very simple graphic manner, food chain एक linear है, but that is going to be a imaginary, a ideal condition. But in practical life, what is going to be happening in practical, in real world, the food web is going to be much more functional, because never ever it is going to happen that a single organism is going to depend on a single source of food. वो हमेशा अलग अलग फूड को ट्राई करेगा and that will be linking it to many other food chains. Now here we have come to a point wherein we have to discuss a small topic, that is 10% law of energy transfer. This 10% law of energy transfer had been given by a scientist called as Linderman. So this is the law that states that energy is going to be transferred from one tropic level to another, and there will be some loss of energy, and because of this loss of energy only 10% of the total energy is going to go to the next level. For example, if there are some plants, अब ये plants ने जितनी भी energy बनाई है, ये plants में से अगले level तक, say for example to a rabbit, how much energy will be transferred? That will be only 10% of it. For example, the plant or the grass has been getting, for example, 10,000 amount of energy. Now out of this 10,000 energy, the rabbit as a herbivore will get 10% of it, and 10% of 10,000 will be 1,000. So 1,000 joules will be coming to the rabbit, and from the rabbit, जब rabbit को कोई और carnivore खा लेगा, कोई carnivore, any carnivore you can consider, what will happen? Again there will be transfer of only 10% because rest of it will be lost off in the energy. So it might be heat or it might be the respiratory losses. So 10% of 1,000 will be 100. So 100 joules will be left to the carnivore. So this entire thing, 10% ही energy transfer होगी, that was proposed by Linderman, and this was given in 1942. So in 1942 this 10% law of energy transfer had been functional, and it was also been understood that ये तो हुआ starting from the producers. So producers से 10% जाएगा, but what from the source of energy, that is the sun. So sun से जो energy होगी, sun से energy, the producers will take only 1%. So for example, if the sun is having energy, that is say, look, 10 lakh, okay, 10 lakh amount of energy has been provided by the sun. अब ये sun से अगर वो किसी producer के पास जा रहा है, or if it is going to some plant, trees, grasses, only 1% of it is going to be transferred from the sun to the producers. So that is one thing to be remembered, that not comes under the 10% law, but you should know because question are asked कि अगर sun energy for example x amount थी, तो finally carnivore तक कितनी energy बचेगी. So from the sun to the producers you are going to consider the amount that is 1%, but the rest of it, that is from the plants to the carnivores, what will be the case? It will be the 10% law from the Linderman. So this is going to be the reason why कि जैसे producers के पास 10,000 पहुंची after the sun giving 10 lakh. So sun के पास 10 lakh था, 1% producers के पास आया, that is 10,000, and finally up till the carnivores the 100 joules was left out. And even if again if you continue the same procedure आप और levels, tropic levels increase करते जाओगे, तो what will happen? There will be much less amount of energy. So 100 joules for a big carnivore is very less. So it will not only eat one rabbit but eat 5 or 6 rabbits. So because of that you can understand that there is going to be a limited number of tropic levels, because the case of 10% law कि जैसे प्रोड्यूसर्स के पास एनर्जी तो ज़्यादा है, बट जब तक वो टॉप कार्निवोर्स तक पहुंचती है it is going to reduce. For example, it will reduce first at 20%, then 30, then 60 respectively at producer, consumer and top carnivore level. So इतना ज़्यादा लॉस होने के बाद even if the tropic levels are increased more and more, it is not going to be practical enough. Here also one diagram has been shown to you to understand how the energy is going to be coming to the top carnivore. So पहले 2000 किलो कैलोरीज थी, then 200 हो गए, 20 हो गए, and finally only 2 किलो कैलोरी what will happen? The vulture, do you think that the vulture is going to be sufficed with the 2 kilocalorie? No, it is not going to. So because of that, it is going to eat more and more tertiary consumers. So वो एक ही नहीं खाएगा, वो 10-12 खाएगा. And even if you think that, even if again more about the eagle or vulture, if you are placing up to for 2 kilocalorie ka, if you go more, what will happen? It will be only 0.2 kilocalories. So that is going to be a very less amount. So because of that only, it restricts the food chain to 3 to 5 trophic levels. So that is one of the hidden lines that you need to understand, that why you don't have lot many amounts of topic levels. Why do you start with a grass and end up at some lion or tiger or human? Because that is the reason that the energy is going to be lost at each and every topic level, and that is going to be considered under the 10% law of energy transfer. Now the finally two terms will be completing this part of the video, that is standing state or quality. So standing state is going to be the amount of all the inorganic substances which is going to be present in the ecosystem, and उसको जो भी amount होगी, that is termed in case of weight, and that will be under the unit area for the given amount of time. Standing crop जो होगा, it is going to be the amount of living material. So if you are considering the standing state, it is going to be inorganic. If you are considering a crop is living, so you can remember it that way. Crop जो है, it is living material amount, whereas the standing state or standing quality is the inorganic amount. So the standing crop is going to be expressed in the terms of biomass of organisms per unit area, and the biomass of the species can be either expressed in terms of flesh, or it can be expressed in the form of dry weight. So anyway you can express the standing crop. So with this we come to the end of this part of the chapter. If you understood it, if you got some help from it, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and do let us know about your things that you need in the comment section down below, so that we can come back to you and help you out. Till the next time we come back soon with the next part of this chapter. Till then, keep studying, keep smiling. Bye bye. Thank you.